You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
I am a bedroom Beethoven.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 132 of the podcast. My guest this week is...
I'm Mr. Lee, and I'm a music producer. My career started in Houston, Texas. I've produced people from Scarface, Mary J. Blige, Jay-Z, Tupac, Nipsey Hussle, Slim Thug, Lil Keke, The Wale, just a bunch of people, man.
And not to put words in your mouth, but technically, you're responsible for Iggy Azalea and Machine Gun Kelly, technically.
Absolutely.
I got drank by the paint, drove by the pine, headed to the club in the boss top down. Slim Thug bout to climb, represent H-time. If you love me, you gon' smile. If you hate me, you gon' frown. Cause me and my boss hogs bout to bow till we foul. This year, I won't style. Slim Thug, I want it all. Going solo, first CD out that's not slow-mo. Here's another hit thanks to Drink and the Dodo. For sure though, we got the club shut down. Tryna pick which chick I'ma cut now. I got a fetish for thick girls that's caramel brown. On the hunt and up, guess what I just find? Come in VIP with me, boo, while we post up. What? We blowing purple stuff, we pouring purple stuff. We glowing from wrist up, you can tell that we rich. It's Slim Thugger, TIP, and Bun B, bitch. When I hit the club, all the girls show me love.
H-Town legend, multi-platinum music producer Mr. Lee is in the house this week. I don't care, man. Call me biased because I'm a Texas boy, but Mr. Lee is more than just a music producer. He creates movements in hip-hop. He damn near scored my childhood. So it's a big deal that he swanked through. We talk about the Rap-A-Lot days, his family history and accomplishments therein, his days in the church to becoming a top producer in the South, working with everybody under the sun. We talk about the Johnny P's, the Little Kikis, how to navigate the business and early recording sessions with Scarface and Mike Dean. But before we get to all that, if you're new to the podcast, look, the last episode was with a modern funk keyboard player. This week I got the king of the South. And next week we might hop into electronica. I don't know. This podcast covers it all. So if you're just a fan of music and you like the conversations, feel free to show your love, subscribe, like, tell a friend about the show. Rate the show 5 stars, leave a favorable review, write into the show, say hello, visit bedroombeethovens.com and buy a shirt. Poke around, I'm out there. All you got to do is find me. All support for the podcast comes from my Patreons. It keeps the show ad-free and they get some perks. Just $1 or $2 gets you into this club. Visit patreon.com/bedroombeethovens, and I appreciate everyone who tunes in. It's back to school season. Fall is fastly approaching. Hope everyone just stays safe, stays blessed, and without further ado, enjoy this week's episode. Let me start off by saying that you inspired me. There's a video of you on Instagram driving through your neighborhood, and you're basically saying, like, with hard work, you can move here, and if I can make it, you can make it. And I'm getting a house built in Houston. I know you're in Dallas, but I just moved to Houston and I got hyped up, man. I appreciate videos like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot of people do it and they do it for the wrong intentions when they do those type of videos. But I really really came from difficult times, and it wasn't, I wouldn't change it. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. But I'm a true believer and true to what I say. And, you know, really anybody can have that. It's not inaccessible to certain people. Anybody can get it if you want it.
Well, you're not the first outlier in your family. You came from successful, creative Black entrepreneurs. My whole life in formal elementary school and middle school, I was taught that the Wright brothers were responsible for the airplane, but the true patent holder, the true originator, was right there in your family.
Exactly. It was my great grandfather.
Did you have that knowledge growing up, or is that something you learned in your adulthood as you were learning about your family?
At the age of 6, I saw the blueprint to the airplane that he built, but at that time, I did not know that he had a patent on it. But ever since I was 6 years old, I knew that he had invented the airplane.
I mean, and how frustrating is that? I mean, I bet you're around your friends growing up like, hey, man, my great-grandfather invented it. They'd probably be like, yeah, right. And you're raising your hand in class telling the teacher that they're wrong.
You know, I guess I was smart enough to know that me trying to explain that to people, they wasn't going to accept it and believe it. So I never disclosed it to people. You know, I really just sat and observed the history books, and of course I was upset about it. And it wasn't until my adulthood, actually a couple of years ago, when I did go back and I reread the history of it, of the airplane, and read the Wright brothers' story. They said that they was considered to be the first people to invent the airplane. They didn't unequivocally say that they were.
Yeah, I guess, and it's funny, depending on where you are in the world, it's different. Like if you're in New Zealand, you're told that Richard Peirce was the first to fly. If you're in Brazil, it's Santos Dumont did it.
Right.
And Charles Page, his achievements were in the newspaper. It's been documented in Pineville, Louisiana. So how did the Wright brothers like go around stealing credit when this stuff was documented? That's crazy.
I think for the most part, I really believe that they got a hold of my grandfather's invention and they, revised it in the ways that they wanted to do. And that's how they came up with their airplane in the first place. Because my great grandfather had shipped his airplane out to St. Louis, Missouri for the Louisiana Purchase Fair. It was $100,000 prize. And as a black man, he had enough nerve to try to do that shit. You know what I mean? I just admire this man more and more every time I learn something about him, because he had no filter on the things that he wanted to do. He just went out and done it.
I'm surprised he had time to do anything because he had 11 kids.
Yes. He was busy in all arenas.
And 84 years later, you're still in Pineville. You're going to high school there. So your family history in that area is cemented.
Yes, my music career started in his house. Believe that or not, I learned how to play the piano in his house.
Wow. And I hope you're not too humble for me to call you like an outlier, because at age 9, you're a musician in the church by that time. You're like a competitive piano player. So there might have been adults in that church choir that were taking direction from you.
Absolutely. They were. I used to intimidate people when we used to go to church, and my dad is like a well-known solo gospel singer in that region. And, when they came up, they already knew that it was going to be something special. And then, my dad would always go up and talk, and then he would have me come up afterwards. And he's like, well, I got my son with me. He's going to play for me, yada, yada. And it's this little boy coming up, getting on the piano, and I'm thrashing the older people, you know what I mean? So it is always something really special.
And you play the bass clarinet too.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Bass clarinet, flute, saxophone. I play several instruments.
Were there any, I guess because it was a predominantly white high school, were there any racial frustrations? Like Charles Page is breaking down barriers. You're breaking down barriers. You're the first black drum major at a white high school. Before you guys won state, how were people a little salty? Were they a little hesitant under your leadership?
Not really. You know what I mean? I grew up around the kids that I went to school with. I lived in a rural area called in Pineville. So I grew up with a lot of the white kids that I went to school with. So, I did get some resistance. Younger, I did experience racism and had to deal with the complications of it. I'm not going to say that I didn't, but, when I went to high school, a lot of the kids that I went to high school with, I grew up with them. So we knew each other. So, it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
I'm just curious, like you're leading a band of 400 people. Of those 400, how many are black?
Probably about 30.
Oh, man. So, it's funny. So this transition, as a person who has played in orchestras and church, I mean, you're classically trained. How do you make the transition to rap a lot? And before you answer that question, I'm not saying that classical orchestra music is better than hip hop, and you're in no way watering down your abilities to produce hip hop. But instead of scoring films or playing on Broadway, you're making music with do or die. And that's not a linear path, I imagine.
No. I mean, I had to learn how to dumb it down. Actually, that's what I had to learn how to do. But I had some crazy mentors when you talk about people like Mike Dean, Joe. John Beetle was the first producer from Rap A Lot that I ever linked up with. And that was way before I signed to Rap A Lot. I actually knew a friend that knew him, and we went to his brother's house, and I met him a couple of years before I ended up signing to Rap A Lot, and it all circled back around, and I ended up at Rap A Lot. But I had some extreme mentors to look at and take example of on how to make the music and what I needed to do, and that's how I became who I am.
Is this before or after the 4 Deep days?
This was after. It was after the 4 Deep days.
It's funny because Scarface said while recording Mary Jane and Smile that him and Mike Dean were doing weed, coke, ecstasy. They were drinking lean. He said they did everything except heroin. So just from a rap studio environment, from like an atmosphere standpoint, like not too many bassoon players are backstage before an orchestra performance doing lines of coke. That must have been an adjustment for you.
It was, crazy enough, we were working on what album was that? Last of the Dying Breed. And I don't do drugs or anything like that. I don't have any habits of doing drugs. I've never been high except for like maybe some secondhand contact. But it was wild to me, man, because one time I was in the studio with him and Mike Dean, and it was somebody else there too. And these guys kept going to the bathroom together. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on? These niggas keep going to the restroom at the same fucking time. It's some gay shit going. What the fuck is it? But they was in there doing coke, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't know that shit. That's what they were doing at the time, you know what I mean? I've seen a lot of shit, just going through life and doing different things. So yeah, the stuff that Scarface is saying is definitely true, and he went through all of that.
Scarface aside, though, so you didn't conduct yourself in the studio like Mike Dean or John Beetle. You did things a little bit differently. Your process was different. Absolutely.
I mean, to this day, I have a live set that I do on Instagram called Beats for Breakfast. And for me, I could do a track. I could do the concept of a track in 10 minutes. It takes me another 10 minutes to put it all together and arrange it. So I came in the game with that gift, and it was different than anybody else's because I can actually put a track together in minutes. And I know how to read the room and read vibes and body language when I'm doing the music. So I depend on the vibe and the energy of a person when I'm around them. That's what the production is led by, believe it or not. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely a special gift that I have.
And we talk about Mike Dean and John Beetle during that time. This is just a side note, but I feel like I have to bring it up. What happened to Joe Bythwood, who produced a lot with you and on the same albums as you in the 90s? What happened to him was pretty tragic. If people don't know, his son ended up killing him. So were you guys pretty close?
We were super close.
Yo, nah, what's up, B-Lo? Hey, man, niggas tried to stir up shit amongst us in Chicago, man. What you think about this shit? All between us and the sniper.
You know what I mean? Joe was battling drug addiction and a lot of different things, and it kind of inhibited us moving forward as I progressed in my career and my success, and that's why we got separated. But Joe used to call me out the blue all the time.
I went from Ziplocs and baking soda to smoking herb, cooking Yoda. Never looking overnight success, cause I want a rover. Hold your head up and stick your chest out. And if you have your business game, nigga, get your best out.
He just called me, hey, what you doing, yada, yada, yada. He was a good spirit, and he was a phenomenal guitar player. You know what I'm saying? He used to tell stories about how he used to work with Roger Troutman and all of this kind of shit. When he first used to tell me those stories, I was like, man, nigga, you ain't working no damn Roger Troutman. Why are you telling these lies, my nigga? You know what I'm saying? So one day we were working on a record with Scarface, and Roger did the talk box on it. And man, Roger Troutman laid eyes on JB, and he ran to this nigga and hugged him. And I'm looking at this shit, and I'm like, wow. Then they went into a room and played guitars for about 30, 45 minutes. Just locked in playing. Like childhood kids, like they hadn't played with each other in years, man. It was crazy. But yeah, he was definitely that guy. You know what I'm saying? I just wished that JB could have progressed and really seen the fruits of his labor, man. I tell people that all the time.
That's incredible.
It's one thing to achieve some things. It's one thing to get some trophies and accolades for something that you've done. But it's another thing to be able to enjoy the fruit of the labor. Those are two different things.
Yeah, I feel like people don't talk about him enough. So that story is incredible. I think twofold, with the drugs and everything, there's also the business side of music. And I think back in the early 90s when you're getting started and you're negotiating with Jay Prince, how did that go? Because you're a 25-year-old Mr. Lee. You're a bit green on the business end. Was your introduction to the business fair? Did it serve you well?
It served me well. I mean, a lot of people said that it wasn't fair in my circumstances or whatever. But for me, it was super fair to me. And the only reason I'm saying it is because I was starting from nothing. You have a lot of people that go into business and they want to fight for different things. They want to own all of their publishing. They want to own all of their masters. They want to do yada, 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 yada. My perspective on these things is this. If a person's not getting something out of the deal or they're not getting a piece of the pie, then they're not going to put the pie on the table. You have to build a portfolio in order to gain access to ownership and power and different things like that. So I knew I had to give up some things in order to get in the door. And my decision was right, because every time somebody came in to Rap-A-Lot, I was there doing the music, because Rap-A-Lot had a stake in making money with me on the front and the back end. So that's why I was on so many records. If you look from 1996 to 2004, I dominated every single album that came out of Rap-A-Lot from those years. And that was because I was smart enough to understand that I had to give in order to get. Once I was able to build my brand and my name, then I was able to start my own thing, own my own music, get my own publishing deals, and et cetera. You know what I mean? So it was a very good decision for me.
I was about to say, in 1997, you're rocking a 7 Series, and that has a sticker price of $90,000. So you're
exactly, that was my first car.
Ooh wee. I mean, you're so successful. Even all your legal problems just get thrown out of court. Like, your success was almost meteoric. It was maybe a lot of other producers probably couldn't have handled success coming in that quick.
No, and I think that situation that I was in was very. It was a very important piece, because I was working in my career like, okay, I can die or I can go to prison at any time. So I don't want to take a minute or a second for granted. And I stayed in the studio and I worked extremely hard. And then I had a guy by the name of Big Chief that was my manager and my most important mentor, that embodied a work ethic to me that I still have to this day, that makes me who I am. That's why I have all the things that I have, is because I learned to work and not worry about getting patted on the back, getting in the limelight and raising my hand so everybody could see what I did and all of that kind of stuff. I just basically had a work ethic to make the money.
I was about to say that a lot of people thought you linking up with Big Chief was a bad idea. Why would
Absolutely.
Why would they say that?
Because they feel like giving 20% to a person that they think is not doing anything is not a wise move to make. But it was the most important move that I could have ever made, because Big Chief made sure that if anything moved at Rap-A-Lot, I was involved. And that was a very essential piece and very pinnacle point of my whole situation at Rap-A-Lot, because without Big Chief, I wouldn't be making all of the placements that I have. Without Big Chief, I wouldn't have the private meetings with Little J, with him talking to me and asking me, am I capable of running the studios? Because he saw how dependent I was and how he could rely on me to do things. And that's why I got in that position.
In 2002, by the time you're getting major placements for over half a decade at this point, I can speak on this because I grew up in Texas. You might have a different opinion, but when Get Your Mind Correct drops, I was a senior in high school when that dropped. And Paul Wall and Chamillionaire, I remember everyone thought Paul Wall was black for like a whole year.
Right.
Man, that album dropped. For me, it was pivotal. What did that do to you? Did you take notice immediately when that album dropped?
I didn't, because I was already ahead of it. You know what I mean? You have to remember, I was doing records with Lil Keke and Slim Thug, and I was beginning to make my stake into the business, and Slim was one of the first people that I reached out to.
When I'm ballin', phone the lack is crawling, out hood rats is calling. My stacks is tallin', to them that's important. But hey, where was you at the other day? Never see myself falling. Picture me falling off and rapping back to starving with no lacks of foreigns, Gucci hats or Jordans. Hey, I couldn't never see the day.
Those two guys were the people that I had my eyes on, that I wanted to dive into outside of Rap-A-Lot. And as we know, Slim is one of the most successful rappers of that era from Houston.
What's the formula, though? Like, why do you think someone like Paul Wall and Chameleon took off, but someone like PSK 13 or Charlie Boy or 50/50 Twin or Hawk couldn't quite break through? What do you think it is?
I just think it's the day and the time, the era. You know what I mean? It was bricks and mortar when PSK was coming out. It wasn't a lot of internet. If it was internet at all, I don't think it was internet yet. And he didn't have the access that these guys have now. You know what I mean? Having the internet and being able to move in warp speed with your music and reaching people immediately by a push of a button is a very strong tool. Plaques from the 90s, that's blood, sweat, and tear plaques. Those plaques are hitting the streets and touching hands. Now you can hit a button and touch people in an instant. And I think if PSK was to come out now, the young PSK, yeah, he would be definitely out there.
Ooh, so it's timing.
It's definitely timing.
Well, I was listening to a podcast with Jazzy Faye, and 20 years ago, Area Codes came out, and he said he got $500,000 for that one beat. And he was like, man, I didn't know you could buy a house with just one beat. So, like, you know, if talking about money is a little tacky, by all means, I respect it. But I got to imagine you were getting that kind of numbers going side by side with Pharrell on Already Platinum.
I wish I was. I wasn't. Pharrell was getting $150,000 a track. I was getting 10. But at the time when I was doing that, I was getting 25 to 50,000 a track. But Slim was a guy that, you know, was family. So I had cut my rates with him at the very beginning. I was selling tracks again at 25,000 at least per track. And when I got with Slim, I was selling tracks to him for $500. But it was because I believed in what he was doing and I cut my prices to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I never got up to the $150,000 because I was the hometown guy. I was the guy that stayed and nurtured the culture in my city. I didn't go abroad a lot and get out there. If I had, I would have got to the $150,000, $500,000 tracks easily.
Well, something happened. His next album, Boss of All Bosses, he went to Koch Records. You produced half the album. Was there a conversation between you two? Like, man, I want to go back to the street shit. I'm done with radio. And that's got to be calculated because a Kanye beat might cost $1 million. Neptune's beat might, like you say, 150,000. A Jay-Z feature might cost $2 million. Or I can take that budget. I can go to Mr. Lee and he can make me a Southern classic. It kind of seems like smart business.
Well, I mean, a lot of things transpired. You know, at the time, you know, Slim was young. We were going through different things and we have growing pains like everybody else. That's my brother. I love him to death. And I'm always doing stuff for him to this day because that's my brother. You know what I'm saying? So we went through our little spat and everything. And I remember telling him, I said, look, dude, if your album succeeds, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I said, if it fails, I'm going to still be there. I said, but if this shit fails, Pharrell is not going to be there. And there's no knock on Pharrell. It's just business. And the album didn't do exactly what it was supposed to do. And that access and the relationship musically with those guys diminished. Ours stayed there. You know what I'm saying? And the album just wasn't as good as a total Mr. Lee and Slim Thug record. We have one of the best chemistries when it comes to production with me and Slim. It's unmatched. When it comes to production with me and Lil Kiki or Zero or any of them niggas from Houston, it's unmatched. I'm the person. I'm the guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm the GOAT. I'm the guy that gets the shit done. And I know how to produce records for those guys. And that's why when we went back to Koch, we got our chemistry back together. When we went back and we started doing records completely with me in the front. And that's how it's been.
Yeah, I'll back that up with a couple more examples. Scarface 2, you know, The Fix came out with Kanye, Jay-Z, Nas, Faith Evans, Neptune's production. But his next album, Balls of My Word, no radio singles. It was Zero, Bun B, Devin the Dude. And I felt the same happen with Paul Wall. He's on Drive Slow with Kanye West. But your track, Sippin' the Bar, was the lead-in to the track on his album.
Right.
And his next album, Get Money, Stay True, was almost exactly produced by you. I mean, it was Jermaine Dupri, Drummer Boy, Travis Barker, but the rest was you.
I mean, even when you look at that, at the record that Get Money Stay True, and you listen to Jermaine Dupri track on Paul Wall's album, his shit sounds just like mine. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at this shit and I'm listening. I'm like, wow. And at the time, it's the labels. The major labels like, oh, we need Jermaine Dupri or we need this and yada, yada, yada. But Jermaine Dupri went in with the Grills record and it sounded like some Mr. Lee shit. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I've always been a trendsetter. I've never got the really the recognition for being that, but I am the trendsetter. The screwed up hook shit, I took that shit to a whole nother level and to where the world is using that shit. And they had their eyes and their ears open watching Houston doing that, and I was the man behind it. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of things that I've set trends for that are used to this day still.
So if it was up to you and Paul Wall, it would have just been executively produced by you every track, but the label kind of comes in and says, hey, you know, Drummer Boy did that track with Plies. It's hot, so we have to put him on there. Travis Barker kind of seems like an anomaly, but I get it because they were in a group together, and then like we have to throw in JD. It just seems like they're puzzle pieces that don't fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's all hype. I mean, that's part of the problem with rap music and why a lot of people don't last and don't have a long career in rap music because they dance from one producer to the other. But when you're looking at pop singers, rock and R&B, most of the ground R&B guys, they go to the same people. They don't move around like that. You know what I'm saying? You can't grow when you skipping around. You can't really solidify a sound for yourself when you moving around different people. And that's a problem,
And
actually.
you got to a position where you started a label, so you could kind of see these problems head on. And I know that's where some of the disagreements with Zero came in. When you started this label, like, hey, you know, maybe I want to evolve and upgrade where I'm not just selling beats. Now I'm going to have to deal with the fine print and I get to cultivate talent. But also rappers are waking up one day like, fuck this contract. I'm not doing an album, blah, blah, blah. Does it make the industry less fun for you, or you still have that fire in your belly like, I want to be a label owner?
Yeah, I mean, it's a task. You know what I mean? There's a lot that goes behind closed doors on the whole situation, even like with the Zero thing. You know, I just wanted to do business the right way. When I signed Zero, he was still signed to J Prince Entertainment. You know what I mean? And we had a conflict in that. And I took matters in my own hand and dealt with the business the way I wanted to deal with it to get whatever money that we spent back. You know what I mean? But it was all respect and love, and it's still all respect and love between me and Zero. We have disagreements on whatever it is, and it is what it is. Some people get on the phone and air their grievances out. Some will just write a song about it, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm almost 50 years old, man. I've seen it, experienced it all, and this internet age, you know, people have a voice to try to air their differences out however they want to air it out. If they feel like they could seek and destroy you by that, then they'll try to do it. And it just may be something in the moment, you know what I mean? But it's all love. I love all the guys that I've dealt with over the last 20 years, whether we have conflict or not. I'm open-minded to all of that stuff. But yeah, I just, you know, I've really fallen back and really just working on my brand. I think it's more essential to work on my brand than try to work on another artist brand because they don't get it. You know what I mean? This is a microwavable era that we're in, and I'm still a developer. I like to slow cook mine. You know what I mean? So I feel like my focus need to be on me, and I can bring the artist on with whatever I'm doing and show them better than I can have them in a situation to try to show them because they won't understand it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that a lot of your past work can cultivate like future talent. Like I mentioned Machine Gun Kelly, and then there was Nipsey that was on the Lil Kiki beat. And but here's the magic though. Get Throwed was a monster record, but Bun B recorded that verse during the Too Hard to Swallow era, right? I mean, we're talking almost 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that record was done in 1992. I revamped it in 2002. It sat on the shelf for another 2 years, and then it came out.
Wow.
I came in the dough, I said it before. I never fuck a hoe without head no more. I never pull up with nothing less than a foe. And I smoke cigars, it ain't just for the show. I'm blessed from the dough and known for my sit out. I send a nigga baby mama home with a Smith out. You can have a bitch nigga, I ain't send him in out. Smoke weed and freestyle, low instrumental.
Yeah, so I mean, music is timeless if you make it that way. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that don't understand that part. And the business has to be done right. You can have music that is ushered out to millions of people. But if you're not getting the money, then it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's like the shit doesn't even make sense if you don't do that. I'm working with an artist named Al D. out of Austin, Texas. He's from Longview, and he's selling records hand to hand. And I guarantee you, this man is making more money monthly than rappers that are having millions of streams are. And because he has a group of people that are willing to pay for his music, not just listen to it for a fraction of a penny. And that's important. And that's the same way with me. I don't have a lot of super mega accolades under my belt, or I don't have the stardom and the fame that a lot of these cats out here have. But financially, I can sit amongst any one of them because I was smart enough to know how to make money in this business.
You seem to have like your business mind solidified for decades, and that's why you're so successful. There's always that line that Dr. Dre used when he said, when your record sales slump, who's the doctor they told you to go see? And I imagine you had your fair share of that. Did you ever have people like Lil Ray or Sir Daly or PJ come to you and they see the beats that you're giving the Slim and Kiki and Zero like hits, and maybe they got jealous or involved you in some kind of drama?
Not people like Sir Daly, but I've had my I've had my share of drama. I've had, stories posted about me and this and that and the third. One thing about it, man, is that the older I got, the more I understood that everybody's not going to be happy with the business that you conduct with them. And I've been able to understand that selfishness and being selfish is a necessity in this business. And anything that you do, you have to understand that you have to put yourself first. And I do that in every business endeavor that I get in because I'm trying to benefit me. If we all work together and we do what we're supposed to do, then everybody will get what they're supposed to get out of this pie. But when you backtrack on some things or you don't handle your business with me, then I'm going to see you about it. I'm not going to be argumentative. I'm not going to get on the internet. I'm not going to say none of that shit. I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to be poised about it. And I'm going to come up with a solution to where I can be compensated for my time and my efforts and whatever it is that I've done with you. I think being a real humble guy, sometimes people take that persona for weakness. I'm not weak. I just don't like to be involved in no drama, and I don't like to air anything out with people. If I got problems with them, I go straight to them. I'm not going to get on the internet. I'm not going to make a track and a song about you. I'm going to talk to you about it. And then we're going to try to work it out. And if you don't want to talk to me and you don't talk to me, then I'm just going to do what I need to do. And that's going to be the end of the story with that.
Because I think we covered a lot. Another person that I feel like people don't talk about enough is Johnny P. Because before T-Pain, before Akon, maybe even before Nate Dogg, we had the Hood Sam Cooke. Like, I loved his voice. And I don't even really have a question. I just never see or hear anyone talk about the greatness of him. I just want you to talk about him, if you will. Maybe there's some things that people don't know. Maybe there's a cool story, his work ethic.
Johnny P was an extraordinary talent. And he was kind of before his time a little bit. You know what I mean? And I don't think that he absolutely got the support that he needed in order to flourish. And, sometimes you can have a diamond and it's not shining and you don't really know that that's a diamond.
Oh, yeah. Whoa. I wonder why my life would be if I had that paper. I'm just a ghetto boy.
And I think that's what it was for him. His group, the people that he was around, Do or Die, AK, Nod, and all of, and B-Lo, they knew who he was. They knew what he was. And, he was just a very phenomenal talent.
If I live on top of the world, shining light, diamonds and pearls, still a ghetto boy, a little ghetto boy.
And I think that not being able to really knock the doors down the way he wanted to, it led him to drugs and the different other things. And, and he, at the end, he passed away from complications of illnesses that he had. And it was just a sad situation, but it was crazy that you even mentioned him because I was listening to this song. I've been listening to it. I think I'm getting ready to redo it. It was a song he did with Scarface called Win, Lose, or Draw. And that record is so hard, man. And when you hear him singing on this record, it just pierced through your whole body when you listen to it. because he had so much passion in the things that he did. He was a funny guy too. He was hella flamboyant, man, and he was funny as hell. And he would speak his mind. He wouldn't give a shit who it was. So you know, what I mean, I had a lot of times, man. I enjoyed a lot of time with Johnny P.
I think Do or Die. I mean, this is just my opinion, but when they worked with Kanye, I thought it was a misstep.
Yeah.
The original formula just can't be messed with.
Nah, I mean, Trackstar was really the guy that really solidified their sound. I came in after when they had disagreements or whatever happened, and I was able to pick the torch up because I understood musically, and I was able to be led by Do or Die on certain aspects of the music in order to make it comparable to what they had. When they got with Kanye just took a totally different route with their sound, and it just didn't fit. You know what I mean? So that's what I tell people all the time. You can go to the most famous guy in the world. If he doesn't match, it's almost like having a basketball team like the Nets, full of talent, and they just don't make it to the big dance because the chemistry's not there.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Jermaine Dupri made Lil Bow Wow a billionaire, but when you put him on a Paul Wall record, it's just a Mr. Lee imitation. That's what I'm learning. The 30 minutes I've learned from us having this conversation is timing and like formula. And
exactly.
It's really big.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, man, when somebody's doing Houston music or they work with a Houston artist, Mr. Lee vibe is going to be involved. You're going to hear an organ somewhere. You're going to hear something. You know what I mean? Like the synths that I use. I started using synths 20 years ago. I was the guy that really got up into that shit. You know what I'm saying? Now you got the synth god. You got Mike Dean. He's doing this thing with the synths. He's the synth god. You know what I'm saying? That's my big brother, and I love him. You know what I mean? The shit that he does. And just to be able to know that I was a part of an era that I was influenced by him, and I was able to influence him too. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to see how things really transpire. But yeah, when you looking at a real live Houston artist, or somebody's doing a record with a Slim Thug or Paul Wall or something like that, a Mr. Lee vibe is going to be it's going to be there, man. It's got to be there. It's got to be there,
man. I think you're having a conversation with someone that really does respect that aspect of you, and I do recognize that. I could talk to you all day, but out of consideration for your time, we can wrap it up. But if you have some stuff that you want to plug, I do want to give you the floor. So anything that you want to say, any talent you're cultivating, I'll give you the floor.
I mean, at this time, I just want everybody to make sure you check into my Instagram. It's Mr. Lee 713. I have a daily series that comes on there at 11 a.m. It's called Beats for Breakfast, where I go in every single day and make a track live on Instagram Live. And I also post all my music on my feed and on the reels after I do it. And I'm also working on a new gospel album called Glory that's going to be coming out really soon. And I have the Blue Laces 3, the final Blue Laces with me and Nipsey Hussle that's coming out really soon. It's already complete. We have some big names on it. We're still kind of tweaking it a little bit, but it'll be coming out soon.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for, I think you saw something in this podcast that was worth your time. I appreciate you coming on. You basically scored my childhood. You talked to Nipsey 3 days before he died. You know, you cultivated all these, I think T.I. needs to write you $1 million check for discovering Iggy Azalea.
For sure.
I mean, personally, I want to thank you for your contributions to this art. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this podcast for if you're living on a rock, or if you didn't know, maybe you live in New York and you don't know about Southern music, Mr. Lee is the man. So I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it, brother.